Crawlspace, a home repair is homicide mystery by Sarah Graves. Narrated by Lindsay Ellison.
Now that it was too late, she knew how wrong she had been. Watching her own hand slide wetly across the kitchen countertop, her fingers clutching uselessly at its edges before slipping off in a slick of her own blood, she understood at last. "Roger," she whispered. Her husband's name. But it came out a wordless sigh. They'd been fighting again. In the past few months, ever since she'd begun fearing that his brother Randy might still be alive, Roger had changed from loving husband to punishing enemy. The idea that Randy might have faked his own death was irrational, even paranoid, but it kept coming back. And this morning's argument over it had been the worst yet. The memory unfurled dreamily now as she lay on the kitchen floor. "Stop!" Roger had shouted, shaking her by the shoulders. "Do you understand me? I'm sick of it!" Of her fear, he meant not only that Randy still lived, but that he had killed her sister, Cordelia. Poor murdered Cordelia, who'd believed until she died that the extravagant double wedding they'd had, the Dodd brothers, Roger and Randy marrying the Lang girls, herself and Cordelia, was a dream come true. She studied her hand, the fingers curling weakly as it went limp on the tile. She didn't want to think about why the usually spotless surface felt wet and sticky, or about whose shoes those were inches from her head. She whispered again, but this time no sound came out at all. Instead, this morning's battle went on replaying in her mind, the past more real to her now than anything in the present, more alive. "This crazy obsession of yours!" he'd bellowed at her, his eyes wild and frightened. She'd tried to get away, to wriggle out of his grip, but he wouldn't let go. "I'm sorry," she'd babbled. Could it have been only an hour ago? "I'll never talk about it again, Roger. Truly, I won't." About how he'd awakened one morning to the realization that her brother-in-law, Randy, had not fallen off his fishing boat and drowned 2 years ago as everyone believed. That the reason his body never turned up had nothing to do with tides or currents. That he was alive. That he'd killed Cordelia. And that now he was coming back to kill her, too. Roger's hands had released her shoulders, only to close on her throat. Terrified, she'd torn at his grip, but he was bigger and stronger than she was, and so angry, so...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?